Today lecture is the second lecture of hemoprotein chemistry. We have 4 lectures in this module. This is the second lecture of hemoprotein chemistry. It includes also diseases of hemoglobin that's called hemoglobinopathies. I have published this lecture also in Arabic language for the Arab students and Egyptian students. This is the ILOs. I will repeat part from the previous lecture for those who do not attend the previous lecture, okay? As we said last time, hemoglobin is formed of 4 polypeptide chain, 2 alpha chain, alpha 1, alpha 2, 2 beta chain, beta 1, beta 2. So we have 4 polypeptide chain, and each polypeptide has a heme group. Of course, you will not understand this lecture unless you hear the previous lecture. You attend the first lecture of hemoglobin chemistry. Okay? Each polypeptide has 1 heme. This is another heme, third heme, a fourth heme. Hemoglobin is formed of 2 dimer. This is the first dimer. Dimer means 2 subunits linked together by covalent bond, and this is very strong, stable bonds. Why it is stable? Because there are large number of bonds between alpha chain and beta chain. These bonds are covalent bond, hydrogen bond, ionic bond. So alpha 1, beta 1 are very strongly linked. They cannot move over each other. No free movement between alpha chain and beta chain. This is the first dimer. Imagine the first dimer like a ruler or a pen. Okay? The second dimer, alpha 2, beta 2, are also linked together by a very strong, stable bond because there are large number of chemical bonds. So they are tightly linked. They cannot move over each other. There is no free movement. But the first dimer is attached to the second dimer by weak bond. Why they are weak? Because there are a small number of non-covalent bonds between the first dimer and the second dimer. Imagine the first dimer like a ruler, the second dimer like another ruler or a pen, and then we fix the 2 dimer in a certain point. So the first dimer can rotate over the second dimer by 15 degrees when oxygen bind the hemoglobin molecule, okay? If you look at this figure, this is the first polypeptide alpha 1, this is the beta 1, and this is the chemical bonds. It's written in green color, and this is a pocket or a notch, like a groove. This is called heme pocket. Heme is found in this groove or the notch or the pocket. And heme is surrounded by a protein because alpha 1 is a polypeptide chain. The protein protects the heme, as we said last lecture. In the beta 1, there is another heme pocket, and this heme pocket is very narrow. Of course, there are chemical bonds between the first dimer and the second dimer. The first dimer is alpha 1, beta 1. The second dimer is alpha 2, beta 2. There are weak chemical bonds. This is a diagram. It is written in green color. They are hydrogen bonds. When oxygen binds to hemoglobin, of course, we need 4 molecules of oxygen because we have 4 heme in the 4 polypeptide chain. When oxygen enter, oxygen rupture certain chemical bonds in the heme pocket and rupture the chemical bonds between the first dimer and the second dimer. As you see, the chemical bond is broken. This is a hydrogen bond which is broken, and rupture also some of the strong bond that is found between alpha 1 and beta 1, and also rupture some of the ionic bond or electrostatic bond, broken, salt bonded and ionic bond between alpha 2 and beta 2. Some bonds are ruptured, and the hemoglobin is converted into the relaxed form. This is the relaxed or the R form, and the heme pocket becomes wide, to accommodate oxygen molecule to enter inside the pocket and binds to heme. Of course, we have 4 oxygen molecule. The first oxygen, the second, the third oxygen, the fourth oxygen. This is the deoxygenated or the stressed tense capital T, or the tight form. Tight means very compressed, very narrow. As you see, this is a wide molecule. The polypeptide are widely separated from each other and the pocket becomes wide. The T form, the 2-dimer, have restricted movement because of the large number of ionic bonds and hydrogen bonds. This is the T form, which has large number of ionic bonds, hydrogen bond, hydrophobic interactions, and this T form has low affinity to oxygen because the heme pocket is narrow, it cannot accommodate oxygen. Whereas the relaxed form, the 2-dimer, have free movement. Why? They are free to rotate over each other because large number of chemical bonds rupture of the chemical bonds. The relaxed form has high affinity for oxygen because the polypeptide are widely separated. The heme pocket becomes wide. What is Bohr effect? We are going to study Bohr effect in this lecture. Bohr is the name of the scientist. Reciprocal binding of protons and oxygen binding to hemoglobin. What does this sentence mean? Either when the oxygen binds to hemoglobin molecule, hydrogen ion is liberated. This is a proton. Hydrogen ion broken. This is the chemical bond, or the hydrogen bonds are broken and hydrogen ion is liberated. So oxygenated hemoglobin is acidic because hydrogen ion is the acid. The acid medium contains hydrogen ion, and vice versa. When oxygen leaves the hemoglobin at the tissue, the hydrogen ion will bind to hemoglobin and to reform the hydrogen bonds. So large number of hydrogen bonds which binds the first dimer to the second dimer, these hydrogen bonds are broken when oxygen binds the hemoglobin molecule, and at the tissue when hemoglobin deliver oxygen and oxygen leave the hemoglobin, the hydrogen ion enter again and resensitize the hydrogen bond or reform the hydrogen bond. That is the meaning of reciprocal coupling of proton and oxygen binding to hemoglobin. This figure, I have shown this figure in the first lecture. If you look at the deoxygenated hemoglobin, this is the first dimer, this is the second dimer, alpha 1, beta 1, alpha 2, beta 2, and this dimer rotate in this direction. The first dimer rotate over the second dimer like that, like the pointer. I am moving the pointer in this direction clockwise. So the heme pocket becomes narrow and the oxygen leave hemoglobin at the tissue. When the partial pressure of oxygen decrease, and another molecule we are going to study today called diphosphoglycerate, DPG, which lead to rotation in this direction, and this is the tight form of hemoglobin, the T form, the deoxygenated hemoglobin. This occur at the tissue. But in the lung, the first dimer move anti-clockwise. So there is rotation in this direction, anti-clockwise. Rotation of the first dimer over the second dimer, and the heme pocket open, becomes wide, oxygen will enter and lead to rupture of the hydrogen bonds and rupture of the chemical bonds, so the hemoglobin molecule becomes wide and relaxed, and the heme pocket is relaxed, oxygen will enter and bind ferrous ion of the heme. This is the oxyhemoglobin, which is found at the lung. This is a third figure diagram to show that the first oxygen atom, when it goes and binds to the first molecule, to the first polypeptide chain, of course, this is one polypeptide, second polypeptide, third polypeptide, fourth polypeptide, and there are large number of chemical bonds. Most of them are hydrogen bonds and ionic bonds. When the first oxygen molecule binds to the first heme in the first polypeptide, it breaks 25% of the chemical bonds that is found inside the 4 polypeptide, inside the hemoglobin. So the first oxygen atom will faces all the chemical bonds. So it's very difficult, most difficult, for the first oxygen atom to bind to the first heme, okay? When the second oxygen molecule enter, it faces only 75% of the chemical bonds because we have large number of chemical bonds. So the second oxygen atom, the difficulty will be less, will be 75% of the chemical bonds, and the second oxygen molecule will break another 25% of the chemical bonds. So the third oxygen molecule, when it enters, it faces 50% of the chemical bonds because the other 50% already broken by the first and second. So the third oxygen molecule will break another 25% of the chemical bond. So we are left only with 1/4 of the chemical bond. The fourth oxygen atom is very easy to enter because it faces only 25% of the chemical bond. This phenomena is called heme-heme interaction. What is heme-heme interaction? Means binding of the first oxygen to the first heme facilitate binding of the second oxygen to the second heme, and this facilitate binding of the third oxygen to the third heme, and so on. So the last oxygen atom binds with very high affinity, 300 higher affinity than the first oxygen atom. Binding of oxygen atom at one heme leads to conformational change. What is the meaning of conformational change? Means change in the three-dimensional structure of the protein, because the protein has primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary, and quaternary. Change in the three-dimension structure of the protein, this change the position of the heme pocket and facilitate binding of other oxygen molecule. So binding of oxygen at one heme lead to conformational change in the other polypeptide chain of hemoglobin, and this facilitate binding of other oxygen molecule. This phenomena is called allosteric effect. Of course, allosteric effect occur in enzymes, and as I said in the previous lecture, hemoglobin is an enzyme, okay? You have to remember what is heme-heme interaction, what is the allosteric effect definition, because this is one of the allosteric modifier, and this phenomena is called cooperative binding of oxygen to hemoglobin. Cooperation means help. The first oxygen help the second oxygen to bind to hemoglobin, and the second oxygen help the third oxygen to bind to hemoglobin, and the first 3 oxygen molecule help the fourth oxygen molecule or cooperate with the fourth oxygen to bind, and this phenomena is called cooperative binding of oxygen or allosteric effect or heme-heme interactions. Another thing, change from the tight form to the relaxed form, the following occur. This is the iron atom or the ferrous ion. It is found outside the plane of the porphyrin ring. This is the porphyrin ring. It looks a concave. It is not a straight line. It is a concave like this. As I walk by the laser pointer, okay? This is the ferrous ion outside the plane of the ring by this distance, okay? Why? Because one of the histidine bind the iron and pull the iron downward. But when oxygen, this is oxygen molecule, bind the iron, the oxygen pull the ferrous ion upward toward the plane of the ring, and the ring will become a straight line. The ring will become straight, okay? The first, the ring, porphyrin ring is concave, because the iron is pulled downward. But binding of oxygen will pull the iron upward, and pulling of the iron upward lead to straightening of the porphyrin ring, and the histidine moves upward, okay? We're going to see another figure. binding of oxygen lead to rupture of non-covalent bonds, which are hydrogen bonds, and hydrophobic interaction that is found between the two dimers, between hemoglobin dimer, and rotation of one dimer, one alpha and beta subunit, 15 degrees relative to the other dimer, alpha beta subunit. Alpha beta 1, alpha beta 2 will rotate over each other due to rupture of the chemical bond by binding of oxygen. Oxyhemoglobin is more acidic because rupture of the non-covalent bond liberate hydrogen ion from histidine, which is found in the polypeptide chain in the beta chain, and so oxygenated hemoglobin is more acidic. As we said, this is the Bohr effect. Reciprocal coupling of proton binding with oxygen binding. When oxygen binds hemoglobin, there is libration and release of the protons. But when oxygen leaves the hemoglobin, the proton will bind to hemoglobin. Okay? Why? Because oxygen binding leads to rupture of the chemical bond with the release of the protons. As you see in this figure, this is a porphyrin ring. Of course, you have to hear the first video and to see the structure of the porphyrin ring. It looks a concave, but the concave surface looks downward, okay? The iron is above the plane of the ring. Why the iron is outside the plane of the ring? Because it is pulled upward by the proximal histidine. The distal histidine does not bind iron, but it surrounds iron, okay? When oxygen enter, oxygen molecule, two atoms, bind iron, it pulls this iron downward. When the oxygen pulls the iron downward, the porphyrin ring will become a straight line and iron will be moved downward. It pulls the proximal histidine to approximate the distal histidine. So the distance, the space between the proximal histidine and the distal histidine become narrow. If you look here, the distance or the space between the proximal histidine and the distal histidine is wide. Again, oxygen molecule, when it binds iron, the ferrous ion, it pulls this ferrous downward. As a result, straightening of the ring becomes straight. Here the ring is convex or concave as you see it. Okay, pulling of this iron lead to rupture of the hydrogen ion, which is found between the two dimer, and pulling of the histidine, which is attached to the helix F, to approximate or to become near to the distal histidine, which is attached to the helix 7. Oxygenation of hemoglobin lead to the following. It is called oxygenation and not oxidation, as you see, because there is no oxidation of the ferrous ion. Ferrous ion never oxidized into ferric. If ferrous is oxidized into ferric, this will destroy the hemoglobin. The hemoglobin will be unable to carry oxygen. So it is oxygenation and not oxidation. Oxygen rupture the covalent bond between the two dimer, alpha beta 1, alpha beta 2. Rotation of one dimer relative to the other by 15 degrees. Pulling of the ferrous ion, either upward or downward, as if when you look upward, when you look downward. Pulling of the ferrous ion toward the plane of the porphyrin ring. Breaking and rupture of the covalent bond due to the release of hydrogen ion or the proton. So oxyhemoglobin is acidic. Hemoglobin changes from the tight form to the relaxed form as a result of rupture of the covalent bond with higher oxygen affinity. Today's lecture is about allosteric properties of hemoglobin. The first allosteric modifier is oxygen, and we have discussed oxygen, explained. Oxygen lead to heme-heme interaction. We are going now to explain the Bohr effect, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, biphosphoglycerate. The allosteric effector, because interaction at one site or one heme on the hemoglobin affect the binding of oxygen at other heme and other locations in other polypeptide chain. Again, binding of any of these molecules, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, PBG, any of these molecules at one site of hemoglobin affect the binding of oxygen to heme at another site in another peptide chain of the hemoglobin. And we are going to explain in detail. This is the sigmoid curve. It is called sigmoid oxygen dissociation curve. You are going to study them in physiology course. This horizontal x-axis is the partial pressure of oxygen in millimeter mercury, means concentration of oxygen or saturation of oxygen. This is 10 millimeter mercury, 20, 30, 40, etc. And this y-axis, the vertical axis, is the percentage of saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen. How many molecules of oxygen is saturated? Many molecules of hemoglobin is saturated with oxygen. If you look here, if we have partial pressure of oxygen, say 30 millimeter mercury, only 50% of hemoglobin in our blood will be saturated with oxygen. If we have 70 millimeter mercury, partial pressure of oxygen high at the lung, 100% of hemoglobin will be saturated with oxygen. What about this curve? This curve is a comparison between myoglobin, hemoglobin A, and hemoglobin F. Okay? I will discuss this diagram because it is present in your book. At the venous blood means at the tissue or the organ of the body. The partial pressure of oxygen is only 20 millimeter mercury. If you look here, suppose this is 20 millimeter mercury. It is written 25, but actually it is 20. You go upward, this is the partial pressure of oxygen. If you make a horizontal line, hemoglobin will be saturated by about 40%. What does this mean? What does hemoglobin is saturated by 40% means that the hemoglobin deliver 60% of its cargo of oxygen to the tissue. Means the hemoglobin deliver 60% of the oxygen, give it to the tissue. Okay? If you look, if we have 20 millimeter mercury, this is the partial pressure of oxygen in the venous blood. If you look at the myoglobin, we go upward, the graph in red. The myoglobin will be saturated by 90%. This means that the myoglobin does not deliver oxygen to the tissue because it has very high oxygen affinity. Okay, what is the function of myoglobin? I have explained in the previous lecture. You have to hear the previous lecture. Myoglobin is a storage form of oxygen in the muscles. When does myoglobin deliver oxygen? When the partial pressure of oxygen reaches 5 millimeter mercury. This is 5. At 5 millimeter mercury, the myoglobin deliver the oxygen to the tissue. This is a steep drop at 5 millimeter. As you see, this is steep, large slope, very strong slope. Again, the hemoglobin deliver oxygen easily. At 20 millimeter mercury in the tissue, the hemoglobin delivers 60% of its oxygen to the tissue, of the cargo of oxygen to the tissue. Okay? If you look at hemoglobin F, the fetal hemoglobin, look at 20 millimeter mercury, the pressure of oxygen in the venous blood, you go upward to the blue color. This is the graph of hemoglobin F, fetal hemoglobin. Fetal hemoglobin deliver only 70. It is saturated 70. Deliver only 30% of its cargo to the tissue. Okay? So hemoglobin F has higher affinity for oxygen than hemoglobin A. If you go to the left side, if the graph move to the left side, this means that the heme has higher affinity for oxygen, as myoglobin has higher affinity for oxygen. If you go to the right side, hemoglobin A, the normal hemoglobin in the adult blood, the curve moves to the right, means that the hemoglobin has lower affinity for oxygen. That is meaning shift to the right and shift to the left. The next diagram are repetition. This is the myoglobin to see. at the venous blood, suppose it is 30 millimeter mercury or 30 torr, the myoglobin is saturated 90%. Means that the venous blood, the myoglobin does not leave any oxygen or only 10% of oxygen. This is the myoglobin. If you look at the hemoglobin, this is the hemoglobin. At 30, the hemoglobin is saturated by 50%. This means that the hemoglobin delivers 50% of its oxygen to the tissue. The third graph, comparison. This is the difference, the light blue color, the difference between hemoglobin and myoglobin, and the difference between 0 and 30. And this large slope means that myoglobin delivers its oxygen at partial pressure of oxygen 5 millimeter mercury during severe muscle exercise. This is the Bohr effect. What is the Bohr effect? Lung, at the lung, very high concentration of oxygen because oxygen enters the alveoli at the lung. Okay, there are exchange of gases between the alveoli and the arterial blood, that is the capillaries which surround the alveoli. So oxygen will enter the RBCs. Oxygen will bind, this is hemoglobin, will bind hemoglobin, 4 molecules of oxygen. When oxygen binds hemoglobin, it breaks the hydrogen bond, ionic bonds, and covalent bond with the libration of hydrogen ion. That is why oxygenated hemoglobin is acidic. The hydrogen ion will bind bicarbonate, and we are going to discuss from where bicarbonate comes. Hydrogen ion, which comes from breaking of the hydrogen bond in the hemoglobin, binds bicarbonate with the formation of carbonic acid. Carbonic acid will dissociate by the enzyme carbonic anhydrase, and this enzyme is found inside the RBCs. It is not found in the plasma. Okay? Carbonic acid dissociate into carbon dioxide and water. Carbon dioxide will go from the blood to the alveoli, from the capillaries which surround the alveoli, to be exhaled in the expiration when you breathe, to go outside the body. At the tissue, okay? Hemoglobin deliver its oxygen to the tissue, okay? Carbon dioxide at the tissue come from oxidation of all foodstuffs, oxidation of carbohydrate, oxidation of lipids, oxidation of some amino acids. Carbon dioxide will enter to the RBCs, will combine with water inside the RBCs. By the action of carbonic anhydrase, it forms carbonic acid. Carbonic acid will dissociate into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate. Now you understand from where bicarbonate come. Bicarbonate come mainly from carbon dioxide, which result from oxidation of carbohydrate, lipids, and proteins. Hydrogen ion, which comes from breaking of carbonic acid, bind to hemoglobin to reform the chemical bonds between the two dimers of hemoglobin, because as I said, the two dimers are linked by hydrogen bonds and ionic bonds. This is the Bohr effect, reciprocal binding of oxygen and protons. When oxygen binds to hemoglobin, protons leave. Why it leaves? Because oxygen breaks the chemical bonds between the two dimers of hemoglobin with the liberation of protons, and vice versa. When protons bind hemoglobin, oxygen leave to go to the tissue, leave hemoglobin at the tissue and deliver to the tissue. This is the reciprocal coupling of proton binding and oxygen binding. One of them only bind to hemoglobin, okay? Please read this paragraph slowly and you are going to understand. The second is binding of carbon dioxide. Most carbon dioxide, more than 95% of carbon dioxide binds water inside, this is the RBCs, and by the action of carbonic anhydrase, it forms carbonic acid, and carbonic acid dissociate into bicarbonate and hydrogen ion. This is the main pathway. 95% of carbon dioxide, which comes from oxidation of our food, enter the RBCs and enter the pathway of carbonic anhydrase. Less than 5% of carbon dioxide will bind the amino group of hemoglobin. Is there any free amino group? Of course. We have amino group attached to polypeptide chain of hemoglobin, and free amino groups of the basic amino acids. Carbon dioxide will bind to the amino group to form this structure. This is hemoglobin. HB is the abbreviation of hemoglobin. NH, this is the amino group. COO minus, negative charge, and hydrogen ion. From where the hydrogen ion come? It is liberated from the second hydrogen of the amino group. Okay? This hydrogen ion will bind to the dimers and stabilizes the taut form or the tight form of hemoglobin. This is why binding of carbon dioxide to hemoglobin will decrease its affinity for oxygen due to the formation of hydrogen bonds. Hydrogen ion comes here and bind to hemoglobin, stabilizes the two dimers in the tight form or the T form. That is why carbon dioxide decrease the affinity of oxygen and help release of oxygen, because binding of hydrogen ion lead to narrowing of the heme pocket due to formation of hydrogen bonds between the two dimers. Okay? Carbon monoxide. We have trace amount of carbon monoxide in the atmosphere. Very small, negligible amount, trivial amount of carbon monoxide. But carbon monoxide liberated from cigarette smoking, from oxidation of fuels of the cars and buses and automobiles. Carbon monoxide binds very strongly but reversibly to hemoglobin to form carboxyhemoglobin. This is carbon monoxide, binds hemoglobin. This circle is hemoglobin. This small circle is carbon monoxide. Carboxyhemoglobin, the bond between hemoglobin and carbon monoxide is very strong, but it can be broken with difficulty. When carbon monoxide binds to one or more of the heme, it shifts the hemoglobin to the relaxed form. This is an opposite to carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide shifts hemoglobin to the tight form, to the T form. Carbon monoxide will shift the hemoglobin to the relaxed form. Relaxed form has very high affinity to oxygen, so hemoglobin will bind oxygen strongly and never deliver the oxygen to the tissue. So carboxyhemoglobin is unable to release oxygen to the tissue. That is why exposure to carbon monoxide is a medical emergency. It is fatal because carbon monoxide fixes the hemoglobin in the relaxed conformation, and this leads to binding of oxygen in an irreversible manner. So hemoglobin will bind oxygen with very high affinity and never release the oxygen. What are the treatment of carbon monoxide poisoning? To give the patient 100% oxygen therapy by oxygen cylinders. Okay? So oxygen will compete for carbon monoxide and displaces it. What is biphosphoglyceric acid? Please revise glycolysis. We have studied glycolysis. We have studied 1,3-biphosphoglyceric acid or glycerate. But this is 2,3. This arises only in glycolysis, but we don't study the pathway of synthesis of 2,3-biphosphoglycerate. This is the glyceric acid. First carbon of glycerol, second carbon, third carbon. This is carbon number 1, this is carbon number 2, this is carbon number 3. In carbon number 2, we have phosphoric acid, which has 2 negative charges, 2 ionized oxygen. In carbon number 3, we have phosphoric acid, which has 2 oxygen ions with 2 negative charges. We have many molecules of biphosphoglycerate. Bi means 2 molecules of phosphoric acid. So we have several hundred molecules of PBG, of biphosphoglycerate. What is the problem of biphosphoglycerate? In the heme pocket, we have many positive charge because we have many histidine residue. Heme is a basic protein. It is a globin basic protein full of positively charged basic amino acid. This positive charge will bind strongly to the negative charged oxygen ion of the 2-phosphoric acid. So this fixes the hemoglobin in the tight form. If you fix the hemoglobin in the tight form, this will shift the curve to the right, the oxygen dissociation curve to the right. Fixing the hemoglobin in the tight form lead to narrowing of the heme pocket. This facilitates release of oxygen at the tissue. At the tissue, we have high concentration of biphosphoglycerate that comes from glycolysis. Biphosphoglycerate will bind to the heme pocket and form ionic bond between the negative charges of phosphoric acid and the positive charge of the heme pocket from histidine. And this leads to narrowing of the heme pocket and help release of oxygen at the tissue. At the lung, we don't have BPG, okay? But we have very high oxygen. When oxygen binds to hemoglobin, it breaks the hydrogen bonds, widen the pocket, and favor the relaxed form of hemoglobin. The last thing we're going to speak about in this lecture are the diseases. But with the diseases, we will explain minor hemoglobin, other types of hemoglobin. The major type of hemoglobin in our body is hemoglobin A. 98% of hemoglobin in our body, 98% hemoglobin A, not A1. We don't have A1. But we have another type of hemoglobin called A2. Hemoglobin A is formed of 2 alpha chain, 2 beta chain. Please revise the previous lecture. But hemoglobin A2, it is formed of 2 alpha chain, 2 delta chain. It is a minor component of the normal adult hemoglobin. It appears 12 weeks, about 3 months after birth. We have 2% of our blood, normal adult person blood, contain hemoglobin A2. But if this 2% increase, it becomes 5%, 10%, this is a disease. This is an index of diseases of hemoglobin. Hemoglobin Gower, this is the embryonic hemoglobin. It occurs in the first 3 months after pregnancy, after conception. The embryo, the first 3 months. The first type, Gower 1, it contains 2 zeta chain, 2 epsilon chain. We have another type, hemoglobin Gower 2, 2 alpha chain, 2 epsilon chain. These embryonic type of hemoglobin are found the first 3 months of pregnancy, okay? Fetal hemoglobin. In the fetus, after 3 months, we have hemoglobin F. It is formed of 2 alpha chain, 2 gamma chain. Hemoglobin F will disappear from the blood about 12 weeks after delivery. After delivery of the baby, after 3 months, hemoglobin F will disappear from his blood and will be replaced by hemoglobin A, 98% hemoglobin A, 2% hemoglobin A2. Okay? Very important to know the different types of hemoglobin. Totally replaced by hemoglobin A about 6 months after birth. The gamma chain has different amino acid residue, has different 39 amino acid residue. This leads to the shift of the curve to the left, so the fetal hemoglobin has very higher oxygen affinity, more than the mother hemoglobin or the adult hemoglobin, so the fetus can gain oxygen from the mother blood. Because the fetal hemoglobin has higher oxygen affinity, it pulls the oxygen from the mother blood. Okay? Another physical properties, slower movement in electrophoresis. The oxyhemoglobin had higher solubility than hemoglobin A. This is not very important. The most important is hemoglobin F had higher oxygen affinity than adult hemoglobin A of the mother. So oxygen will be released from the mother and attracted and bind to the fetal hemoglobin. Hemoglobin F do not bind biphosphoglyceric acid. Has very low affinity. This is very important. Biphosphoglyceric acid needs histidine to bind, okay? Because we have 2 phosphoric acid with many negative charges, and we need histidine which has positive charge. But the fetal hemoglobin does not have histidine. It has serine, okay? So, biphosphoglycerate will not bind to hemoglobin F, and this increases the affinity of hemoglobin F to oxygen. As I said before, binding of biphosphoglycerate fix the hemoglobin in the tight form and facilitate release of oxygen. Okay? So if hemoglobin F does not bind 5-phosphoglycerate, so it is found in the relaxed form and it binds oxygen with very high affinity. The affinity of hemoglobin F for oxygen is much higher and formation of oxygenated R form is favored. Will curve, oxygen dissociation curve of the fetal hemoglobin is lifted to the left. A direct benefit, which is the more efficient transplacental transfer of oxygen. Oxygen will be transferred across the placenta from the mother maternal hemoglobin A to the fetal hemoglobin F. Hemoglobin A1C, as we said, glucose bind non-covalently or covalently to the beta chain of hemoglobin. As we said, we have 2 alpha chain, 2 beta chain. Glucose, which bind covalently, it occurs without enzymes. This process does not need enzymes. It occurs spontaneously. Any process which occurs without enzymes takes a longer time. So needs long-term hyperglycemia in diabetes. If the patient has diabetes mellitus with very high uncontrolled level of blood glucose, so more glucose bind to higher percentage of hemoglobin in the RBCs, and hemoglobin A1C gives us an index of the amount of glucose in the blood. This is a group of glycated hemoglobin in which glycate means carbohydrate. Glucose covalently linked to the beta chain of hemoglobin. Okay? The half-life of the erythrocyte, 60 days. Okay? We have the half-life of the RBC's lifespan, 120. So the half-life is 60 days. If we measure hemoglobin A1C, which is the glycated hemoglobin, or the cumulated glucose level in the blood, this will give me an indication or the index about the blood glucose level over 6 to 8 weeks, because 8 weeks equal 56 days. 8 times 7 days means 56 days. This is about 60 days, or the half-life of the RBCs. This provide me a valuable information about the long-term control of the blood glucose in diabetes mellitus, and give me an indication also about the success of the treatment or the proper dose of the drug which we give to the diabetic patient. If we give the proper dose, the level of hemoglobin A1C will be normal. The normal level in normal healthy adult of glycated hemoglobin or hemoglobin A1C less than 6.5%. But if the level becomes higher than 6.5%, means percentage of hemoglobin in our blood which is covalently linked to glucose. The percentage more than 6.5, this is a diagnostic of diabetes mellitus, but controlled blood glucose. If the percentage is higher than 8, this indicates poorly controlled or uncontrolled diabetes mellitus. The patient does not control his blood glucose level. This is the gene family, because we have alpha gene family of genes, beta gene family. As we said, we have 2 alpha chain, we have 2 beta polypeptide chain of hemoglobin. The alpha chain is found in chromosome number 16. It contains 3 genes, alpha 1, alpha 2. They differ from each other by certain amino acid sequence. And the zeta, which form the embryonic hemoglobin, the zeta looks like the letter E. The letter E looks like this shape, okay? Beta gene family, it contains many genes. Beta chain, 2 alpha chain, 2 beta chain of hemoglobin A. Delta chain, we have 2 alpha chain, 2 delta chain, hemoglobin A2 of normal adult blood. Gamma chain, 2 alpha chain, 2 gamma chain of hemoglobin F. We have 2 types of gamma chain, G type, A type. G means glycine, A means alanine. And epsilon, which is found in embryonic, as I said, embryonic hemoglobin is found 3 months in the first 3 months after pregnancy. GAWAR1 contain 2 zeta chain, 2 epsilon chain. Hemoglobin GAWAR2, 2 alpha chain, 2 epsilon chain. We are going to study diseases of hemoglobin. Diseases of hemoglobin. Either we have mutation, abnormal polypeptide chain of hemoglobin, mutated polypeptide chain, or insufficient quantities of normal polypeptide chain, very rarely both. We are going to study hemoglobin S, hemoglobin M, hemoglobin C, alpha thalassemia, beta thalassemia in detail. The first is the sickle cell disease. Sickle cell disease. We have single point mutation in the beta globin gene, change of a single nucleotide, is called point mutation, lead to change of a single amino acid. We have glutamic acid at position number 6 of the beta chain. This is normally. It will be replaced by abnormal non-polar valine. We don't have valine in the normal hemoglobin. So if we replace glutamic acid by valine, the following will occur. We are going to see it in the next diagram. The shape of the cell will be like this shape, crescent. It is called sickle shape. The normal RBCs have a disc shape like a coin with biconcave disc. Sickling will lead to the following pathology. If you look here, hemoglobin A, normal hemoglobin, if it is deoxygenated, it has a groove. It has a groove. A groove means a notch or a well, which looks like a triangle. Okay? In deoxyhemoglobin S, hemoglobin S, this is the abnormal hemoglobin of the sickle cell disease. We have the same groove, the notch. But in oxyhemoglobin S, in hemoglobin S, we have a sticky patch. The sticky patch, this is the valine, the abnormal valine. Normally, in the normal hemoglobin, we don't have valine. We have glutamic acid. It makes this triangle. As you see, the red color triangle. And we have also the sticky patch. This sticky patch comes from the valine, will enter in this notch and bind to this notch. This notch is called the receptor for the sticky patch. So this is the first molecule of hemoglobin S. It will bind to the second molecule of hemoglobin S by binding of the sticky patch to the notch or the groove, which are receptor for the sticky patch. The first molecule will bind to the second molecule. The second molecule had a sticky patch, will bind to the third molecule in the notch or the receptor. The third molecule had a sticky patch, will bind to the fourth molecule or the notch. The fourth molecule had a sticky patch. It will bind to the fifth molecule and so on. So polymerization and formation of a rigid fiber. This rigid fiber lead to sickling of the RBCs. Such sickle RBCs will block the blood vessels and lead to interruption of the blood supply, and this lead to decrease in the supply of oxygen to the tissue. It looks like a thrombus, and the tissue will die and lead to infarction, necrosis, and death of the tissue. At the same time, this polymer will give the RBCs a rigid structure, so the RBCs will be hemolyzed in the spleen and will be ruptured and destroyed, and hemolysis of the blood occur in the spleen. What is the treatment of sickle cell anemia? The treatment is not written in your book, but I have written here for you. To remove the spleen, because the rigid sickle shape RBCs will be destroyed in the spleen. So removal of the spleen will protect the patient from hemolysis. Another line of treatment, which is bone marrow transplantation. The bone marrow is the factory which sensitizes RBCs. So if we remove the bone marrow of the patient and give him a new bone marrow from a healthy donor, he will have normal blood and normal hemoglobin. There are two types of the disease, either homozygous. He have 2 molecules of hemoglobin S and does not have hemoglobin A. But heterozygous, he have in the RBCs one molecule of hemoglobin A, normal hemoglobin, one molecule of hemoglobin S, because he has heterozygous mutation. So he does not have the disease, he will be only a carrier. He will have sickle cell trait, okay? Another disease, a second disease, which is hemoglobin C. The glutamic acid, which is found in the beta chain of hemoglobin, glutamic lie in the 6 amino acid, will be replaced by lysine, and this lead to mild chronic hemolytic anemia, mild lysis, mild breaking down of the RBCs. Hemoglobin M, methemoglobin. We have a genetic cause. We have a genetic cause. What is the mutation? The mutation is the histidine. As you see, histidine is a bodyguard, as I have discussed in the previous lecture. Histidine protected the iron from being oxidized from the ferrous to ferric. If histidine is mutated and change it to tyrosine, tyrosine itself is a powerful oxidant. It will oxidize ferrous iron into ferric iron inside the heme. If the heme is oxidized from ferrous to ferric, it cannot carry oxygen, and this is the methemoglobin. The methemoglobin contains ferric and does not contain ferrous. So, the methemoglobin cannot carry oxygen, cannot release oxygen at the tissue, and the patient will suffer from hypoxia. Other causes which are non-genetic causes. The RBCs has normal metabolism. And the normal metabolism of amino acid liberate hydrogen peroxide and free radical. And this lead to oxidation of hemoglobin. And normally 1% of hemoglobin are oxidized each day from ferrous to ferric under normal condition. We have an enzyme which is called methemoglobin reductase. This is normally present in our RBCs, in our blood. This reduces the ferric and convert it into ferrous. So it keeps the iron in the ferrous state. This is an enzyme called methemoglobin reductase. If there is decreased activity of methemoglobin reductase, the patient will suffer from methemoglobinemia. Certain drugs like sulfonamides, nitrate drugs also oxidize ferrous into ferric and lead to methemoglobinemia. The last diseases we are going to explain are thalassemia or familial. These are diseases of the Mediterranean country, either alpha thalassemia or beta thalassemia. All types of mutation occur in thalassemia. We have point mutation, mutation in a single nucleotide or a group of nucleotide. We have deletion, we have insertion, we have frame shift mutation. All types of mutation lead to decreased synthesis of either the alpha chain or the beta chain. Alpha thalassemia, defect or mutation in the alpha globin gene lead to decreased synthesis of the alpha chain. We have 4 copies of the alpha globin gene on the 2 chromosomes. We have chromosome number 16 and the pair of chromosome number 16. We have 4 copies of the alpha globin gene. We have different types of alpha thalassemia. The first is the silent carrier. We have 4 copies. Only one of the 4 copies of the genes are mutated, and the patient is only a carrier and does not suffer from any disease. We have alpha thalassemia trait. 2 genes are mutated out of the 4. The patient suffers from mild hemolytic anemia. Alpha thalassemia major. 3 genes are mutated, and the patient will suffer from severe anemia. The last one, the patient will not live. He will die intrauterine life inside the uterus before delivery. The 4 genes are mutated and we don't have any alpha chain. So the baby or the fetus will sensitize either 4 beta chain. In the normal condition, we have 2 alpha chain, 2 beta chain. The fetus will sensitize 4 beta chain or sensitize 4 gamma chain. This is called hemoglobin bar and this is called hemoglobin H. Why the fetus sensitize 4 gamma chain or 4 beta chain? Because we don't have alpha chain. There are mutations in the 4 genes. These genes are somewhat soluble, but they have very high oxygen affinity. They do not deliver oxygen to the tissue, so the fetus will die from anoxia. die in the intrauterine life or very early after birth. This condition is called hydrophytalis. The second disease is the beta thalassemia. There is mutation in the beta globin genes. We have only 2 copies, but in alpha gene we have 2 copies. The beta gene family lie in chromosome number 11. If we have mutation in one gene, the condition is called beta thalassemia trait minor, and the patient will suffer from very mild disease. It's not dangerous. But if the patient have mutation in the 2 genes, in the 2 copies of gene, he will suffer from thalassemia major, and this needs frequent blood transfusion because he have hemolysis. The fetus appears normal at birth. Why the fetus is normally at birth? Because at birth the fetus has hemoglobin F, and hemoglobin F contains 2 alpha chain, 2 gamma chain. There is no problem because the disease in the beta chain. But after delivery, by 3 months, the condition start to be diagnosed because the born baby will begin to sensitize hemoglobin A, and he does not have beta chain, so the condition will be diagnosed 3 months after birth. Beta thalassemia is associated with increased level of hemoglobin F. Hemoglobin F will increase in the blood of the baby even after 6 months because he does not have hemoglobin A. There are diseases in the beta globin gene, and they have high level of hemoglobin A2 because in A2 we have 2 alpha chain, 2 delta chain. You are going to memorize this table. In hemoglobin S, glutamic acid, which is found normally at position number 6 of the beta chain, is replaced by valine. We have discussed and explained sickle cell anemia. In hemoglobin F, histidine, either proximal or distal histidine, is replaced by tyrosine, and this leads to oxidation of the ferrous into ferric ion. This methemoglobinemia. In hemoglobin C, glutamic acid at position number 6 is replaced by lysine, and you have to memorize this table. In alpha thalassemia, we have mutation and decreased synthesis of alpha globin chain. We have 4 types of alpha thalassemia. In beta thalassemia, we have mutation and decreased synthesis of the beta chain of hemoglobin, and we have 2 types of beta thalassemia. And this finished the lecture. Thank you very much for your attendance. I advise, if anyone does not watch the first video, to watch the first video because you will not understand this lecture without hearing the first lecture. Thank you for your attendance and your patience, and wishing you success.